Here are the stories of two more people I found in this birthday photo from 1888. Today we are starting with number 9 on our list, Helen Lewis. Born October 18th, 1876, Helen is the oldest of all the kids in this photo, being 11 at the time. Helen would grow up to be a bit of a local socialite. She never married, had any kids, or had an official job. Instead, she spent most of her time volunteering with various local church and social clubs, and was heavily involved in the creation of Taconic, Pennsylvania's public library. However, one of the most interesting aspects of her life that have been preserved are a series of letters that were published in newspapers while Helen was traveling across Europe. For 3 months in 1899, Helen visited several European cities and wrote back about her experiences and thoughts on each location. These articles offer a great window into what Europe was like at the end of the 19th century, but one of the funniest highlights from them are Helen's comments on the local men. For example, Helen states while in Paris, quote, "I am compelled with sorrow to confess that I haven't seen a decent-looking man since I set foot on French soil." While in Italy, however, she was very quick to point out that, quote, "There are some very good-looking people here. The men especially are much more manly-looking than the Frenchmen." Helen continued to live in Taconic, Pennsylvania for the rest of her life, until October 18th, 1950, her 74th birthday, where as she was leaving her house, this happened. Yep, Helen had the horrible, unfortunate luck of getting hit by a truck on her birthday and passing away from her injuries a few days later. Despite its abrupt end, Helen did live a long, fulfilling life, and dedicated most of it to bettering her community. Next, we are moving on to number 10 in this photo, Mary Baldwin. Mary was born on February 28, 1881 in Montrose, Pennsylvania, to George and Elizabeth Baldwin. We unfortunately don't know much else about Mary other than a few newspaper articles from her childhood. The reason why there is so little information is because Mary was sick for a lot of her life and had to be taken care of by her parents. Several newspaper articles throughout the years report on Mary's poor health, and her death certificate reveals that she suffered from epilepsy. Because of this, Mary never married or had children, and passed away from pneumonia on January 11, 1922, at the age of 40. Before we end, I do want to share one thing I found about Mary's father, George. George worked various jobs throughout his life, but it's his time as publisher for the Taconic Republican newspaper that I want to focus on, because it turns out George would constantly start beef with other competing newspapers. One of the best examples of this comes from an article he ran where he claims the Wyoming Democrat newspaper published an untrue story on District Attorney candidate James E. Freer. However, George goes on to insult the Democrat by stating their, quote, "prices are so low that starvation stares the publishers in the face." A week later, the Democrat responded to George's attack with their own article, which ended with this statement: "As to popularity, neighbor Baldwin is not popular enough to get the post office here, which he very much wanted and needs, in order that he might keep up his high prices and small amount of business."